So our first step here is use the quotient rule. So the quotient rule is the rule that says we can write this as one big radical. Now keep in mind that that 5 that's outside the radical is just going to stay there. It's in the bottom, so we're going to write it as 1/5. But we're going to write one big old fraction of 270 y squared over 3 y to the negative 4. That was our first step of use the quotient rule. Our next step is divide. So inside that radical there, 270 divided by 3 is 90. Y squared over y to the negative 4th. Remember that we're going to subtract the exponents. So 2 minus negative 4 turns into 2 plus 4, which is just y to the 6th. That 1/5 is just staying there this whole time. So now going back to my directions, my next part of the directions were simplify, which we know means break it up, take the radical, clean it up. So the 1/5 copies down. For the break it up step, let's take the square root of 90 and break them up as a perfect square and whatever's left. 9 goes into that, leaving us with 10. As far as y to the 6th, that's also a perfect square because remember 6 is divisible by 2. We're not looking at 6 being a perfect square, we're looking at y to the 6th being a perfect square. And as long as that exponent is even, it's a perfect square. That was the break it up step. Now let's do the take the radical step. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 10 doesn't simplify, and the square root of y to the 6th is y cubed. Now let's clean it up. How about the things that are outside the radical? We have a 3 and a y cubed on top with a 5 on the bottom. And then things that have a radical, square root of 10. And that's it. So we can see that each step of the way was not that hard as long as we understood what each of those 5 steps were. So again, going back to the top where we had the directions written out, use the quotient rule. That was this step here, where all we did at that first step for use the quotient rule was to write a single radical instead of a radical on the top and the bottom. Our next step to divide, we divided 27 by 3 and y squared by y to the negative 4th. In the last piece of the directions that said simplify, we broke it up as break it up, take the radical, clean it up. Those 3 steps we should have memorized at this point. Break it up, take the radical, clean it up, and we got a nice little answer.